Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hash Knife Ranch. We had an episode of In the Chute that we were talking about ropes and in general, and kind of
How
spurred
horrible we
on
are.
another type of topic on ropes. So we thought we'd do the In the Chute on that one. Kind of evolution of the ropes. What do you think, Kayla?
Sure. I don't know where you're going with this. Because I really, frankly, so here's kind of, I guess, if I'm to guess where you're going with it, it's, rope used to be stuff like hemp and
Yeah,
really like flax. It,
sisal.
sisal. You're using grains and plants to create a rope.
Right.
And nowadays, a lot of it has frankly turned into I guess synthetic, right? It's a lot of
Yeah,
it's
nylon.
it's nylon. It's essentially a byproduct of oil, frankly,
Yeah.
and they've just twined it together, fused it together to create what we've got, what we think of today as rope.
Right. Well, I remember when I was not all that old watching or looking at some pictures that were on the wall at my Grandpa Yates's house.
Mhm.
And I mean, these are the old oval pictures, they're big ones.
Yeah.
And it was like his dad. And I noticed the rope. Usually these, guys were on their horses and his rope just hung, just kind of like a rubber band would on the side of your saddle, just kind of long, not round like we think of today. And I can remember asking him as I was a little older, I said, why was his rope like that? And he goes, well, it's a hemp rope. And I said, what do you mean? And I'd never heard, I didn't know at that age, I was pretty young, I'm talking 10, 11 years old. So probably
Yeah.
somewhere in there. And he said, well, it's made out of plants, a hemp plant, or like the twine that you get off of bales. All the twine then was sisal, and it was treated to keep it from rotting, and hopefully rodents wouldn't eat through it on all your small square bales. And a lot of your ropes were made out of that 3-twist sisal rope, hemp. They used them in on ships. Same thing. It was all plant-based type ropes. And if you've ever picked one of those up, it takes a little bit more of a skill. We're talking about roping and
Oh, yeah.
ropers, because now that the nylon ropes kind of hold a shape of their own, and you can make them elongate depending on how hard you
Well, and
throw them.
there's additive to it too. I mean, there's a sticky resin to it that they've put into it to make it that more solidified. I guess it's almost like a starchy, in a sense, hold to it.
Yeah, and I remember it used to be had a wax to them.
Yeah.
Some of the older ropes, when I was a kid, they waxed the outsides of them, and they were a nylon, but they were a very rudimentary. I mean, they were really coming along in their evolution of the type of rope, but yeah, they can make them stiffer. So like a heading rope, so it keeps a big round shape, so it goes over an animal's head. Or then they can soften them up for a heeling rope, so that when they go in front of their feet, it kind of elongates out.
Yeah.
So they step into it. I mean, it's all. I mean, talk about science. I mean, there's a science to that on the development of ropes. Our lead ropes, they always used to be sisal or some nylon. Some of them are braided nylon. I like the twisted nylon, because then I can splice them, or I can build end knots into them, or eye splices, and make them usable, for anything from a halter rope to, packing, using on our pack saddles. You use those ropes. Used to be the sisal, then they went with Manila was another type.
Is that a plant?
Type.
What is Manila's a plant, huh?
It's a plant, but it was a lot of them from like the Philippines, and that's why I think they got the name Manila rope.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I believe that's correct. I'd stand corrected on that.
It would make sense.
Yeah. And that was an early rope. They're not super strong like nylon is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would take a heavier rope for the same type of strength, but you just were selective about what you hooked onto with it, or what you could do with it. Then they had some synthetic stuff. The first time I ever heard of it or saw it was the same color, but it looked plasticky, and it was a nylon, but it was called Unmanila. Instead of Manila, it was Unmanila. It was a synthetic version of that. Looked
Trying
like
to play
it.
on the name.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a Manilo is another brand name or a type based off of Manila. I've used plenty of that in packing, and they're really nice in that they didn't stretch. The problem with nylon, a true nylon, is that stuff will stretch and stretch
Yeah.
and stretch, and it's
Well,
expensive.
it's like nylon clothing, you know, after a time.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah,
does.
and it's expensive, super expensive, you know. So I would use a lot of Unmanila or Manilo, and not worry about that it was as durable, because it would get fuzzy as you use it. It kind of starts to fray on the outside.
Yeah.
Well, that fray helps hold knots and helps hold loads. So you kind of want that, but then you get to a point where, okay, you've used it up and it's really getting frayed. Nylon doesn't do that, but nylon stretches and it's expensive. Then there's some stuff that we've really gone to that's kind of a combination. There's crab line, which is, remember whenever we had some of the little 3/8 inch crab line, literally that they use on crabbing boats.
Yeah. Yep.
Or, you know, ships, and super stiff stuff, but it would, God, that stuff, you can have a colt drag that stuff forever. He never wore it out. So we would put that on our colts, a 15, 18 foot chunk of a real light line, so it wasn't heavy, but that stuff was super durable, and you wouldn't have to do much with it to keep it from, fraying, because it just frankly, it wouldn't.
Right.
Then the multi-line is what I've really gone to in the last few years, and it's kind of a combination of, it's a very soft nylon, yet there's some strands in it that are very, very strong without being stiff, and they're really pliable. Some of them, when they're like a braided nylon, the stuff is great, but pretty soon it gets so stiff, it's almost like picking up a stick.
Yeah.
It
gets really hard, especially if it's being drugged by animals at all for any length of time. It goes through all the manure and stuff. All that gets on there and it cakes, and you're right, it makes it super hard. It's like throwing a club around.
Yeah, and you can't bend that stuff like
No.
to make a knot. I mean, it's like you're turning it like that, and part of that is aging of the type of rope. The braided, I think, is what causes that, because it tends to stick together a little bit more. But yeah, some of that stuff's horrible. It's great when it's brand new. It's nice and soft and pliable, and then all of a sudden you walk out there one day and it's like, no, I've died. I'm going to be in rigor mortis for as long as you own me. So it's just horrible stuff. But yeah, the multi-line, I use that for the packing. I use it for lead ropes. It's super, super strong, yet stays pliable in a 3-twist. So I can put knots in it, and end splices, and or eye splices and end knots, all kinds of stuff. So it's super handy stuff. But God, about any type of rope you want to get, some of it's pure nylon. You would never use that, because it's, like you think about the stuff for like boats, where it's really the yellow stuff, or have different sizes of that yellow nylon rope.
Yeah.
Drag that through your hands sometime and just see how much of a burn you come out. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. No, I've done that a time or two. It didn't feel good. Like, all it takes is a ticked off 2-year-old, and they just take off. They really, how it is.
Yeah.
They just take off, and they get strong enough at that point that you can't hold them back, but you're trying to.
You can't. I can.
Okay. Yeah. They're Thor, and go through your hand, and the next thing you know, your hand's red and it's blistered, and it's going to be like that for the next 2 weeks, and you're not going to move it much. It's just going to be like this.
Burns. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. The stuff, some of that stuff is just nasty. You would never use it in that kind of a environment, because if a horse got a leg around that, as in like a picket rope, you would just burn them. I would just take all the hide and the hair off of them. That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
Nasty burn.
Yeah, I think that goes along with I was going to go down that road a little bit, was a lot of the times the old ropes we end up using them for training hobbles, for getting them used to picking their feet up and getting used to things being around their feet. That way, using as much out of your rope as you can when you really can't use it.
Right. No, that's right. It's about just giving it another reuse.
Yeah.
And using it, because now it's going to drag on the ground until it's completely, totally done, and goes in the garbage after that. But some of that stuff it's disposable, but it's disposable over a long length of time too, and 50 cents a foot versus 15 cents a foot. You want to be particular about what you're going to use. And that's where some of that nylon stuff that's real stiff comes in handy, because if you can ever get it formed first, then you just leave it like that and it'll wear well and serves a decent purpose. All
right. So with that, do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Recycling before it was cool.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Is it time to put this one to pasture?
I think so.
All right.